The 495 Fly is the biggest boat that Nimbus has ever built, and back in January it scooped the award for European Powerboat of the Year, so it must be pretty good, right? Well, we've come to Mallorca for an in-depth tour and sea trial to find out, and I reckon if you're in the market for a 50-foot cruiser you can run yourself, this could be right up your street. Is this the perfect owner-operated machine? I'm Jack Haines, you're watching YachtBuyer. As I said in that intro, we are going to drive this later on. I'm going to take it to Marina as well to show you what it's like to handle it slow speed. So important as an owner-operator boat. But we're going to start with the tour because there's loads of functionality to enjoy on the 495 Fly, and it starts right here at the stern. First of all, practical thinking. Storage is excellent. There's a big bin here where you can fit the fenders. There's also a really large locker, big enough to fit the ball fenders, and you're probably already picking up the fact that there's asymmetric decks here, a narrower one raised on the port side and then a really deep wide one on the starboard side. We'll come on to the benefits of that later on in the tour. Another nice touch, they have fitted as an option this barbecue grill back here. Pretty simple, just pops out of the transom. You've got your Kenyan grill and a sink so you can clean it. You know, you're off the back of the boat, still connected to the cockpit, but I think that's a really neat way of integrating the wet bar. And I know what you're thinking, why would you want to cook in front of this big glass screen? Well, we'll come on to that in a moment. Before we do, let's talk about the bathing platform, because it's a really, really nice feature. First of all, it's quite quick. So it drops down really quite fast, and as you'll see, some steps are coming out as I do that. So as it drops down into the water, you're getting a lovely shallow stairway down into the sea. And that is also how you're going to launch your tender. It can carry something like a Williams mini jet or another 3-meter-ish tender. But it's worth pointing out that because you've got the steps, you probably don't want a tender that's going to cover those. You don't want to have to remove the tender every time you want to use the steps. So it's a little bit shorter that doesn't block the steps would be sensible. And note how there's still this nice platform linking the transom, so I can still walk around back here even though that platform is down. Really great design all round on this back here. There's loads going on. There's even more in the cockpit. Before we get into it though, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon, and you'll never miss another tour like this one. The mooring gear is covered on both sides, so open up those hatches, you have a winch, cleat, a rope bin and a multi-directional fair lead, but then when they're not in use they're nicely hidden away. And it's the same with the fuel fillers as well underneath these hatches, so it's all nice and clean and tidy when you're not using them. I should mention, when we talk about mooring, there's a cleat down there, lower down as well, great for when you're springing when you're mooring stern to. And talking of mooring stern to, you can have a joystick here as well, so you can be right in the cockpit coming up to the quayside. Always quite nice if you're going to be in somewhere like the Mediterranean. Inside the cockpit itself, you'll notice the lovely big table here. This is at its full width. It folds up, so when you're on the move you don't want to be taking up so much space in the cockpit. Makes it a little bit smaller, and because they've favoured the starboard side, you can see the seating goes right over here to the port side, so you get this nice L shape, this corner. It's such a nice place to tuck yourself into when you're relaxing here in the cockpit. Obviously protection is excellent, plenty of coverage overhead. And then we come onto this window that I mentioned on the bathing platform. That is controlled via this screen here. In fact, you can control all this functionality from all of the screens on board. But what that does, if I hit this button, is it pops up, and this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this on any boat, to be honest. It's developed by Nimbus with their glazing supplier, and you can stop this window anywhere in its travel, but ultimately you'd have it right open, and then you're open the elements, nice fresh air, great view of course. But then if you want some protection, you can put it down. It's got blinds as well, so it's great for privacy. It sort of takes what Marix does with its curtain covers to the next level, and you've got covers, these are canvas covers on both sides, so you can really easily fully enclose this area. And the whole point is how well these two areas connect together, so that is really extending your living space. If the weather's not so good, you've got proper hard protection at the back and then the covers on either side. I think that's really clever. The only fly in the ointment is because of the position of that window, it's probably going to attract a lot of salt, so you'll spend a lot of time cleaning it, I imagine. There's also a window here that drops down. You can see got this section, but again that drops down, so it's all about the connection between this area, hence why we've got the aft galley layout. And we're going to talk more about the interior layout in a second. Before we do that,
let me show you the foredeck. This is where you really see the benefit of the asymmetric deck layout. This starboard side deck is so deep and safe and wide, and importantly it connects to all this stuff here. The side door that goes into the saloon, which is huge, and also this boarding gate. I really like the size of this door. It makes it so easy to get in and out. It's behind the helm seat, so that makes passage through this space really easy. What I would like to see though is it to be able to lock in certain places. At the moment it's either open or it's closed. Being able to pin it somewhere like that, so you get a bit of ventilation from the helm, I think would just add to the functionality. But can't argue with the size and practicality of that. And this is a great little feature as well. It's always nice to have these right next to the helm, so you can come out of the helm and get straight onto the dock. And to get it to neatly tuck away into the side deck here, it drops down, and then when it's closed or open, it's not blocking your passage forward. Really like that bit of design. You step up a little bit as you move forward. Notice the windscreen wipers on the side here. You know you're in a serious cruising boat when you've got side windscreen wipers. And they arrive here at the foredeck, which is a really nice living space actually. You've got cup holders, you've got handrails, you've got slots to put a canopy if you want a bit of protection up here. But of course it's practical too. So we have quite useful storage on both sides. Really good for lines and covers. It's not that deep, but a really handy place just to stash the ropes. You've got a mix of sunbathing space and obviously a little table here too, so you can have some drinks and snacks up here. They've also got adjustable backrests, so you can sit up rather than be lying completely flat. And then right forward, see this lovely flat foredeck area. It's what I'd expect from a Nordic boat. But at deck level, you have a split anchor locker. So, though strangely there's no actual partition inside the locker, so the chain and lines and fenders are all in the same space, which is a bit of a shame because you might risk pulling a rope up into the windlass when the chain's coming in. But it's a nice deep space, really handy extra area to stow some fenders if you need to. Right, we're going to go up to Flybridge before we start the driving section. Let's head inside and check out the interior. Right, onto the interior then. Galley aft layout, and it's split, which is quite nice. It just means that they can split some of the domestic appliances and everything's not too crammed in. So for example, you've got your cooking over here with extraction overhead. This is induction cooking. There's a microwave oven underneath, and then on this side you have your fridge. And there isn't space in here to have one big full height fridge freezer, so you've got one under the counter there. You've got this top loader here. These are always really handy, really useful addition on a boat like this. And then they've got another drawer on down there as well. So not one enormous fridge, but they've tried to pack in cooling space wherever they can. And like outside, the use of space in here is really clever. This section, for example, this drawer goes a long way back into the counter, and this is where you've got your cups and your crockery all neatly stowed right by the galley. There's a dishwasher that goes underneath this seat. It's just sort of drawer dishwasher, but better than nothing, I suppose. The only thing this area is really lacking is big storage or drawer storage for big pans. If you want to have a wok on board, you're a little bit short of space. However, this hatch underneath my feet does pop up. The optional gyroscopic stabilizers in there, this boat has it as an option, but there's still enough space to put some chests in there, and you could put some bigger equipment in there as well, so it's not too bad. And crucially, when you're in here, you're really nicely connected to the outside with this curved glass. Obviously you've got this drop down window, works very nicely indeed. And the functionality continues forward here at the dining table, so you can see it's in sort of snack card table mode at the moment, but there's a little pin here and I can twist it to this position, and then it all opens up, and these leaves rest on the handholds. So if you want to dine in here, you open it up, you've got a nice big table, and you can draw across this stool. So there you go, that's your inside dining space. Now you'll see the headroom is a little bit restricted, and they really want to try and keep the centre of gravity and also the profile quite low on this boat, and there are a couple of spots in the interior where you get that compromise. One of them is here, but it's not too bad because this is a place to sit. You've just got to watch your head when you move out, and we'll see downstairs in the cabins there are a couple of other pinch points when it comes to headroom. But I really like this space, the type of boat where you may well end up eating indoors, so it's nice to have a proper dining table. The television is a pop-up job, that's behind this little seat here. And then we come onto I think one of my favourite spaces in the interior. A lot of thought has gone into this. You've got somewhere to lie and relax, but you're still sort of in touch with everything. It also is your navigator seat. We've only got a single helm chair, so this functions as your navigator seat, but because of that, I like that they put another screen down here. So the navigator has their own screen, they can keep an eye on things, they can control functions without having to go over to the helm. There's some storage under here as well, and also a little spot to put books, paper charts, and a map light as well. And then we come to one of the really impressive things about the packaging of this boat is you have a flybridge and a big sunroof. Really not something you see really outside of sports bridge style boats. You'll see we've got a proper flybridge upstairs, but even with this closed, this is fixed, this opens, you've got plenty of natural light down here, but with a drop down window, sliding door, and this, plenty of options for ventilation, and natural light is great as well. Let's head downstairs and have a look at the accommodation. In terms of the lower deck accommodation, as standard, it's a 3-cabin arrangement, a VIP double forward, bunks here on the starboard side, and then a full beam master cabin amidships. However, as an option, in this bunk cabin, you can have this as an office if you prefer. I think they've produced one so far with that option, because I think most people like the idea of having the extra sleeping space, but if you're really not going to have that many guests on board, having somewhere where you can work is a nice option. As a cabin, the bunks aren't huge, it's really ideally set up for kids, but fine occasionally for adults to sleep in here. Their storage is pretty good, they've got a nice big locker over on this side, there's one behind me as well. Not great storage for luggage in here, there's no AV either. You have got your own climate control, so you can set the temperature in here, and nice that although it's quite thin, you have got a narrow strip of hole window, and there's reading lights and sockets so you can charge your devices. It's pretty simple. And over the way is one of the 2 bathrooms on board. It's the day head, it's also the bathroom that these 2 cabins will use during the night. And you know what? It's a pretty good size. Look at the head height in here. This forward section of the accommodation, the headroom is really good, and they've got skylights wherever they can. There's one in the hallway, there's one above here that opens as well, so you can ventilate it easily. And because we've got the raised side deck on this side, you'll see in that twin cabin there's a bit of intrusion overhead because of the side deck there. You haven't got that here. This is the side deck, nice and narrow, meaning when you're in the shower, it's a little bit tight width-wise, but headroom's perfectly good. And I've got a rain shower head. How posh. Plus a wand, toilet down there, sink, and a little bit of storage as well. And right forward of this, we come to the VIP. And even here, standing forward in this cabin, because they've raised the deck height as well, the headroom is perfectly good alongside the bed. To be honest, you're going to be down there when you're getting changed. But they've managed to fit a nice big bed, and you're not too squeezed as you move around it. Storage is excellent as well. There's drawers underneath the bed. You've got hanging lockers on both sides, and these nice deep eye level lockers as well. That one, again, because it's a little bit shallow there, isn't so deep. That one goes back a long way, but any storage is helpful. You're always going to find things to put in areas like that. And you've got hooks all over this boat as well. It seems like a really simple addition just to chuck some hooks on the wall. Brands don't often do it, but it just means you can hang your coats up and towels and dressing gowns, and it's not taking up room in your cupboards. And you know, this is nice enough to be the owner's cabin if you want to sleep up front for whatever reason, be a bit further away from the machinery maybe, but of course the owner's cabin is amidships and it's full beam as well. The way they've arranged this cabin, when you first step into this lobby, there's hooks obviously, but you're also directly opposite the ensuite heads, and this is private. Narrower than the one forward, but it still has all the bits you need, like a separate shower cubicle. You have got to shut the door to get to that, but that's not too much of an issue. Crucially, headroom here is still maintained and it's pretty good. It's just nice for the owner to have this lovely private space. Stepping into the cabin itself, I mentioned up on the main deck that there were areas down here where they've had to compromise the headroom to keep the centre of gravity and also the actual visual profile of the boat quite low, and this is one of those areas. You can see the intrusions over the bed here. This spot here, and even this section round the wardrobe where you're going to be getting changed, it's fine to stand, but as you move closer to the bed, you just got to watch your head as you move around. But it's not so restricted that you can't sit up in bed if you want to. Storage again is really impressive. You have these types of cupboards on both sides with a nice mirror as well. And talking of mirrors, look at the size of this vanity. That just pops up, and you've got loads of storage space there, shallow stuff for jewellery, handbags, shoes and things at that end, and there's drawers underneath as well. There's storage on either side of the bed too, and there's another slightly smaller hanging locker over here, and you can actually extend this seat and have 2 of the chaise longues. They say that sometimes you might want to have the kids or the grandkids sleeping in this cabin, so you can use those as occasional beds, which is quite nice. But the vanity is also good storage. It's nice, you can have a mix. You have got AV in this cabin, nice big TV mounted on the wall here. So yeah, headroom restrictions aside, it feels like a nice comfortable cabin. Yeah, this is a liveaboard boat. You'd expect us to be on board for weeks on end, and I think you'd be pretty comfy down here. Right, before we head out to sea, let's go and check out the Flybridge. The Flybridge is an interesting space. If you're comparing it to something like the Botnia Targa 46 or the Nordstar 49, this feels very big, but compared to, say, the Greenline 45 Fly or the Absolute 50 Fly on a Vetta, it feels a little bit pinched. So it sort of falls between those two categories, but with the space they've got, they've done pretty well. And I'll point out that if you want to compare this boat to its rivals, as I just have, you can do that on YachtBuyer.com. Head over there and you can compare them side by side really easily. So what have we got here? Well, seating space aft with a table at its centre. They've actually worked the sink into the middle of the table as well. There's no wet bar up here. You've got a fridge underneath the navigator set and a sink, but there's not actually anywhere to cook. Here we have a nice big sunbathing space, and that's also, like downstairs, got a pop-up backrest so you can sit a bit more comfortably, and maybe even a calm day when you're going along, 2 more people could sit facing forward and enjoy the ride. In terms of coverage, there's no fixed hardtop option on this boat. You've just got the bimini, so that swings forward obviously and offers protection over this area, and there's space aft as well for some optional solar panels, so you can feed the domestic batteries from the solar energy produced by the sun, and they're just quite nicely hidden away actually there on the back of the Flybridge. And of course the really nice thing is we've got somewhere to drive from, so I'm going to take a seat, fire up, and off we go.
Should we talk about pricing before we talk about driving? The base price is around 1.2 million euros, but it does come with some good kit as standard, things like 12-inch MFDs, proportional bow thruster, that aft window as well, that's a standard fit option. But if you want one to this spec, and this has got pretty much everything on it, including the assisted docking from Volvo, generator, air conditioning, the quick stabilizer, you're looking at just over 1.5 million euros, excluding VAT. And I know when we're talking about those types of figures, it's a lot of money, but in this market, considering the competition, it's built in Sweden, that to me seems like pretty good value for money. And that really is, in terms of options, I think the most you'll pay, because as I said, this is heavily spec'd. I've got a written review on YachtBuyer.com already going into the value for money and what I think you should spec, so the link to that's in the description below. Head over there and have a read after you've watched this review. Right, let's drive it. And to speed her up. In terms of engine options, they've kept it incredibly simple. There's one Volvo Penta IPS 650, 480 horsepower per side. And interestingly, often with IPS boats, the hull at the stern is shaped a bit like this, and so the pods kind of cant out like this. On this boat, they've flattened off the aft end of the hull a little bit, and the pods are slightly straighter down, and they want to do that because they felt it would give the boat a bit more stability, less lean in the turn. It would just overall give it a bit more of a securer feeling, more maybe like a shaft drive boat. So we'll see that as we get into handling. For now, I'm just easing up through the revs, and we're up to 20 knots. This boat is the first one out of the factory. It was the one that was launched at Cannes. They've saved about 300 kilograms in future boats by reducing the lamination on the Flybridge. So future boats are a bit lighter, probably going to do over 30 knots. This one, in these conditions, warmer water, is probably 28 knots flat out. But either way, you're cruising at 22 to 25 knots. That is what it's designed to do. If you drop it down to displacement speeds, you might get 600-700 nautical miles out of it. But cruising at these speeds, you're probably looking at maybe 300, 250 nautical miles, depending on the conditions, of course. So yeah, comfortable cruising range. And it is very, very comfortable. This position is almost sports car-esque. I've got my legs out in front of me, the wheel is close, my arms aren't too stretched, there's a little bend in my elbows, I've got the joystick and the throttle right underneath my hand, and even though the MFDs are close to me, I can just very easily reach forward and touch them. I've got a repeater control down here as well. So with this armrest here, I can control pretty much everything with the flick of a wrist, including things like the AV and the horn and some lighting, because I've got a multi-function steering wheel. It's absolutely brilliant. And I'm in the seated position. I can still see the bow rails, so I've got a good idea where the front of the boat is. You can bolster the seat as well, so you want to sit a little bit higher. If you're coming into a marina, for example, you can. But here you're just below the windscreen, and at 22 knots, this is a really comfortable cruising speed. It feels very happy here. My navigator's next to me with the same style of seat as mine, but there's a nice gap between so they can get in and out if they need to. And as we saw during the tour, this can pop up so you have 2 more people sitting next to you here, or someone can lie facing that way and they're below the windscreen. So again, they should be nice and sheltered. So open it up a touch more. Have a feel of the handling. Yeah, well, I suppose it doesn't maybe have that heel that sometimes you would expect from an IPS boat of this size. But I'm not really looking for that on this. A Sunseeker Superhawk 55, which has got IPS, I want it to heel. I want the adrenaline to course when I'm trucking it around. That's not what I want from this. I want it to sit comfortably at 25 knots and just be easy to live with. And it is. We've seen that through the tour, and it comes all the way to the driving experience. This is such an easy boat to drive. The integration of all the Volvo systems. We'll see that more when I berth it in a moment. But it couldn't be simpler. You can get comfortable easy, you can see everything easy, you can reach everything easily. The only thing it's lacking is big storage. There's deep cup holders for devices and sunglasses and stuff, but there isn't anywhere for any bulkier things around here. So that's the only thing lacking up here. Everything else, absolutely spot on. It's not particularly rough today. There's a very, very light chop here in Mallorca, and this thing is just hoovering it up. You know, no complaints at all. It's not really being tested. I know they have had this boat out in serious conditions. They've done possibly thousands of hours on this boat, long journeys as well. They've put it through the ringer. It seems to have hung together very well for hull number 1. But here today, bumping through this light chop, easy as anything. But I'm actually more excited about the lower helm than I am the upper helm. So let's drop down there and have a drive from there.
Now, when I first saw this lower helm when I toured the boat at the Cannes Boat Show, it looked to me like they'd been to the Jack Haines helm design school, because by eye it looked very ergonomically sound. They put lots of thought into how this area is going to work when you're out at sea, and I can see now, being here out at sea, it works really well. And there are a lot of similarities with upstairs. Everything is not only an arm's length away, it's a hand's length away. With the throttles, the wheel, the joystick, the control for the MFDs. I can sit back in my chair and I can reach everything so comfortably. The MFDs are a little bit more of a stretch away, but it doesn't matter because I've got that control, and they're angled nicely. They're slightly bigger. These are the upgraded ones on this boat. And the way they present the data is perfect. I've got engine on one side, you know, my engine information, and then the chart on the other. The view forward is excellent, and we've got everything closed up, so it's, you know, it's quite nice and quiet here. Engine noise is contained, but I've got the sunroof open. So we've just got a little bit of breeze running in here. It's getting a little bit warm, and that's perfect. And I mentioned during the tour, because of all the ways you can open this up, depending on the conditions, you can ventilate this area really easily. And it is remarkably quiet. We're now at 20 knots, and the engine just a sort of low hum in the background. And again, when you're covering distances, that's really nice. It's tiresome if you're fighting against the engine noise to talk to people back there. The people who can sit comfortably on this side as navigator. I'm not having to raise my voice to talk to the camera right now. All of this stuff makes it really comfortable when you're doing those longer cruises. And look at this, actual stalks for the windscreen wipers. Remarkable. It's taken till 2025 for a boat manufacturer to work out a simple way to use windscreen wipers. Not a switch down here that you have to spend a month working out what it actually does. Simple and effective. I love that sort of thinking. It's typically Swedish stuff. Gets on with the job so efficiently. I can't put it more plainly than that. It makes your life easy on deck. It makes your life easy at the helm. But of course, this is the easy bit, and I've talked about it being an owner-operated boat, and the most important thing really is what it's like to handle around the marina. If you're doing that as an owner-operator, a couple of you, that is the most intimidating part of owning a boat like this when it comes to being out of the water. So let's head into the marina and see what it's like in that environment. Right, we are heading into the berth now. This boat has got assisted docking fitted. I'm actually not going to use it because it's so calm today. I'm just going to use it the old school way. But what assisted docking does is it sort of combines the docking capability of IPS with DPS, Dynamic Positioning System, which holds the boat in place, which essentially means you get breathing space. If you let go of the joystick, the boat will just hold you, no matter the current or the wind. If you're panicking a bit and you're close to the berth and you don't like what's going on, you can just let go of everything and the boat will just stay still. It's like if you're flying a drone and you let the controls go, it just hovers. Very similar. It takes that panic out. It gives you a moment to breathe, and just take a moment to regather yourself and then pick up the controls again. It's amazing, it really is. And also you can use it to make very fine adjustments, so you can nudge it once to port and it will move 30 centimeters, and if you do it 3 times it will move 90 centimeters. So you can do really fine adjustment. It'll also bring in the bow thruster if it thinks it needs to. Most of the time it's only going to use the pods because they've got so much power. But it really is a very good system if you're nervous about berthing, if this is a big boat for you, you're stepping up to it. It really does take all the thinking out of it. It's great kit. But as I said, I'm just going to, because it is so docile, I'm going to pop it into docking mode now, and now I'm just using the standard IPS joystick. I am going to pop the bow thruster on just so I've got it in case. So we're in a Mallorca Marina mooring stern 2, and this position is great for this as well. The all-round view is excellent. I've actually got the surround view cameras on the Garmin system, so I've got a top-down view of the boat, similar to what you get in cars these days. I haven't got parking sensors, so to speak, but I can see exactly where the boat is. I can see out back, I can see to the side, and I can see the top-down view as well. I'm just edging us in slowly. I will turn and line us up with the berth. So we just turn on the joystick, and it says a lot about the quality of this lower helm position that I've got a Flybridge, but I want to be doing it down here. This boat hasn't got the optional joystick in the cockpit that I mentioned, but it doesn't really matter, to be honest, because I've got this side door here, I've got the cameras, and I can spot the berth because they've got those curved glass sections at the back of this wheelhouse. I can really spot my position from here. Yes, I've got the cameras, but there's nothing like using your eyes. I'm just lining up with the berth now. I'm just going to move the whole thing sideways a bit, so full joystick to port. That moves us the whole thing sideways. Just straighten her up a touch, and this is where assisted docking. I wouldn't have to be straightening it up normally. It would help me with that process, but I'm doing it the traditional IPS way. Yeah, between the cameras and the all-round view, it's so easy to spot where you are from this lower helm. And if you're doing this with 2 people, as the skipper, you probably want to be down here because you're in much better communication with them. If you're up on the Flybridge, you feel slightly isolated. Edging in slowly now. Top tip, just do everything really slowly. I know it's easy to say when it's calm. If you're moving slowly, you shouldn't do too much damage if you do collide with anything. So easy to make fine adjustments as I'm just slotting it in between these 2 boats. I'm just going to take the edge off a touch of the pace we're coming in, because it's likely we'll touch the boats either side now. You don't want to be going too fast, but she's just drifting back now on her own momentum. Might just keep the stern a touch. And now I can see, using the cameras, the proximity to the quayside. See that Jonas from Nimbus is grabbing the stern line, and we're in. Right, let's switch the engines off and we'll stick our head in the engine room. Let's talk engine room access, shall we? There's 2 ways. There's a quick access hatch, a smaller hatch here in the cockpit deck, but as well as that, at the touch of a button, this entire deck lifts up as well, so you can get really good engine access if you want to do some involved work. Now, as I said, this is hull number 1. One of the changes they've made is that this is now hinged, because you have to move the steps in order to lift up the whole deck. At the moment, this is jammed, the first one they made, so we can't actually lift the entire deck. So to show you the engine room, I'm going to employ the services of this quick access hatch. Now clearly, if you're just using the day-to-day hatch, headroom in here is pretty compromised, but when the whole thing is open on these rams, not only is headroom a lot better, but obviously light and ventilation is. So really you're going to be just dropping down using this hatch to do your quick checks and make sure everything's okay. Obviously we've got the slightly smaller IPS engine options here. They considered maybe having the D8s, but they're big blocks, they're heavy, so we've got the D6 IPS 650s, nice and compact. You've got the pods just behind them as well, so access to those is pretty good. If you spec the generator, which most people will, that's behind me here, and everything is really nicely lined up on this forward bulkhead. It's very easy to inspect things by eye, not that easy to clamber around when the hatch is down, but as I said, open up the hatch and that problem is solved. I really summarised my feelings towards this boat on the way back in, driving there. It's just so easy to live with. It feels like all of Nimbus's experience, all of this was designed in-house, has gone into making this boat as easy to use as possible. I say it again, it feels like a boat that's been designed by people who go boating a lot. It isn't all that exciting to look at, and certainly the interior design is pretty bland. If you want something that really gets your heart racing from an aesthetic point of view, there are better options. But if you want something that's easy to live with, that you can run, and be on your own or with 2 people at 50-foot level, I don't think it gets better than this. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching that tour and review of the Nimbus 495 Fly. I hope you enjoyed it. We wanted to test this one for a while, but a few requests to test it as well. So give us a like if you enjoyed it. And if you want to see a test of maybe something this size that's a bit more rugged, how about our review of the Nordstar 49? I'll put that up there for you. If you'd like to subscribe, you can do that by clicking up there. Thanks again for watching. I'm Jack Haines. This is YachtBuyer.